The 30 Years' War, A Lifelong Conflict by Evan Morgan. The 30 Years' War is an often forgotten conflict, despite being one of Europe's bloodiest conflicts. The war raged between the years 1618 and 1648, and while initially the war was between Catholic and Protestant forces, it ultimately grew as a sort of anti-Habsburg alliance, more focused on bringing down the growing power of the Habsburg dynasty. Now, to put the start of the war into extra short terms, it started when the Holy Roman Emperor, Ferdinand II, attempted to enforce religious unity within his realm. Namely the Kingdom of Bohemia, which had been inherited by the Habsburgs. However, when he had sent two counselors to enforce Catholicism on them, they were promptly thrown out of the window in what was called the Second Defenestration of Prague. However, they survived the fall, and the act of rebellion was enough to start a war between the emperor and a combination of Bohemia as well as several other Protestant states within the Holy Roman Empire. Now, after the deal with Bohemia was over, the Habsburg monarchy dealt a lot of blows to the Protestant armies. And ultimately it led up to the intervention of foreign powers, with the first notable one being that of Denmark-Norway. Denmark-Norway decided to join the war on their behalf under the reign of King Christian IV, who came in with a fairly sizable army, but ultimately left the conflict due to further continuous failure. And he peaced out in what was called the Treaty of Lubeck. The next part of the war, and this is really the turning point for it, was the intervention of the Swedish under the famous warrior king Gustavus Adolphus, who also joined on the Protestant side. And the reason why he was so important was because he actually started seeing success against the Holy Roman Emperor. Namely, he had a major victory at the Battle of Breitenfeld. Now, one thing worth noting about Gustavus Adolphus is that he succeeded to the throne during a couple of wars that were against his predecessor. And while he didn't really manage to win all of them, he at least managed to keep Sweden together. But after having recovered from all of this, he decided he would intervene on the growing conflict within the Holy Roman Empire. Here's a map of the Battle of Lutzen, where Gustavus Adolphus ultimately met his end. You can kind of get a good idea of the figures and the positioning, but it is this right flank here which is really important. So basically, Gustav focused his efforts on breaking Wallenstein's left flank here, and in order to do so, after Wallenstein had gotten reinforcements, he himself came with his men to reinforce them as well, where he ultimately lost his life. There are a variety of versions of his death, but the most sort of repeated one is that he was hit by a stray shot. The end of the war was brought about by what is called the Peace of Westphalia. It stated, most importantly, that within the Holy Roman Empire, that rulers were allowed to practice whatever religion that they wanted to. It brought about the phrase, his reign, his religion. This brought about what historians call the early modern era, because of the increased toleration, which started mostly in the Holy Roman Empire, seeing as how it was made up of hundreds of constituent parts, and the fact that each ruler could practice whatever religion they wanted obviously brought about a massive amount of freedom. Another impact of the end of the war, or by the end of the war, was that because it had taken place mostly within the Holy Roman Empire, or modern-day Germany primarily, it was completely devastated. The population had been utterly tanked. Soldiers, seeing as how there was no feasible way to pay them all, within any reasonable amount of time anyways, resorted to pillaging in order to gain enough to live and the income that they saw themselves as deserving. Germany would take a very, very long time to recover from this event due to the loss of population and disease being catastrophic. Thank you for watching my short lecture on the 30 Years' War. I would like to thank Wikimedia for having a large depository of public domain images to use, and I'd also like to thank Kevin MacLeod for the free music. It's super nice. Thank you so much.